And now the offseason in Athens, but not a vacancy of items and topics to talk about, certainly concerning Georgia football. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, including Palmer Thoms from Dogs 247 Sports. Palmer, we always appreciate you stopping by to break down the Dogs. How you doing today?
Doing well. Feel like I'm constantly trying to help break some news here with NFL draft decisions, transfer portal news, and such. So it's been a busy day covering the team in Athens, and just nice to get a little bit of a break and sit down and talk with you.
So we'll get on that in just a second, but why don't we put a wrap on what happened, of course, against Cincinnati at the Peach Bowl, a nip and tuck game that went right down to the wire and right down to a final kick, and then a safety, of course, to push it to 24-21, but a big win against Cincinnati for the Dogs.
Yeah, certainly an exciting way to bring in 2021 for Georgia fans and for college football fans in general. I mean, first game to kick off the year, and it certainly was an exciting one. Like you said, went down to the last second. Jack Podlesny makes a 53-yard field goal with 3 seconds remaining on the clock, longest field goal in Peach Bowl history, longest game-winning field goal in Georgia history since, I believe, 1980-something. So, it's been a while since Georgia fans have been on the right side of a close game like this, and, certainly was exciting for them, seeing the Dogs play in Atlanta, getting to see, some of those senior players and some of these guys that we're going to talk about, either showcase what the potential is like for 2021 or get a, last chance to show out in front of their home fans. So, it was definitely an exciting game. JT Daniels goes 26 for 38, 392 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The thing that stands out about me to Daniels, about Daniels to me is, I'm sure we'll get into this later when we talk about his decision to come back to Georgia. But the thing that stands out is just the fact that he doesn't have to play perfect, and he looks pretty good doing so. He has had his ups and downs in these games that he's played in. 4 career starts now for Georgia, and he's looked pretty good in all 4 of them. Like I said, he's had his ups and downs, but for the most part, I think Georgia fans would be very happy with 392 yards. You look back at his Mississippi State performance, over 401 yards there. He's had big games. Georgia's offense has put up a lot of points with him, averaging over 35 points a game. And so, the interesting thing will be, and like I said, I'm sure we'll get into this talking about 2021, is seeing how Georgia can balance the run game with the pass game, because they had their struggles against Mississippi State, only ran for 8 yards there, and here against Cincinnati only ran for 45 on 24 carries. So, but it was certainly a big game for Georgia, and had several big plays. George Pickens and Arian Smith both with plays over 50 yards. Pickens gets over 100 yards for the second straight game, 3rd time in his career he did that. Big play from the defense late in the game. Azeez Ojulari comes up with 3 sacks in the 4th quarter and 1 defensive MVP in the game, and put the finishing touches on it with that sack in the end zone to bring it to 24-21. So certainly was an exciting finish to this crazy football season. And I know Georgia fans, having seen that performance and the way that this team has looked coming down the stretch, they're playing like one of the best teams in the country, and that's certainly the kind of momentum you want to roll into the new season with.
Yeah, Palmer, as you well know, because of the narrative that this coach and this team has placed itself in, to its credit, the expectations are so high, and because of the opponent that they did not choose, but still proved to be a very capable and quality opponent, Georgia basically couldn't win in this situation. They had to win the game, or they would have been just ridiculed beyond end for losing to a group of 5 team, regardless of how good they are. Number one, no score would have been too outlandish that they would have been expected to hit. So they're even gaining a bit of ridicule and criticism for scraping by with a win in what was a tremendous ball game. I think statistically you could see where Georgia separated themselves, but you could also see where Cincinnati would have done a few different things in terms of game management and clock management, could have been able to escape with a win as well. The other side of this is for the onlookers that saw Notre Dame get routed in the college football playoff. There was the eyes that looked toward Oklahoma and Georgia and Texas A&M and elsewhere to see who could have been a more worthy opponent for Alabama. And of course, Georgia was that opponent up until about 7-8 minutes left in the game in Tuscaloosa that was able to stand up to them. And then looking at JT Daniels thinking, wow, we wish we would have seen him against Florida and him against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, that is entirely true, the narrative in Athens, that there's a lot of expectation that had JT Daniels played against Alabama, had he played against Florida, that this team probably wouldn't have been playing in the Peach Bowl. With a win over Florida, they would have had a chance at the SEC championship game and a second crack at the Tide. And I think that's, coming out of that Alabama game, I think that's what everyone wanted. The loss in Tuscaloosa, week 4, it's not that concerning. Obviously that there were ways that Georgia could have played better there, better quarterback play and such. But I think the turning point for this season was the loss to Florida. Puts Georgia, behind the 8 ball, trying to play their way into the SEC championship game and needing help to do so. And so, I think, yes, you're right that, that the narrative is certainly, had Georgia had JT Daniels, this could have been a very entirely different scenario. And so I think, the way that they finished the season, like I said, they're playing like one of the best football teams in the country. I think you could have made a case that, like we talked about last time I was on, with a bigger playoff, expansion there, this team would have had a shot to put up a fight against an Alabama, an Ohio State, a Clemson, a Notre Dame, and down on the line. So I think, there's like I said, there's certainly a lot of excitement rolling into a new season.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love, best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's our aim, our goal, our mission. Every day we're talking college football right here, so please lock it in. Smash that like button. That helps us build the channel, as well as share these videos out on social media. Not everyone knows that we're here. Go out on Facebook, Twitter, and please share the content. And, of course, subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live. Palmer Toms joins us on a regular basis talking Georgia football. Join him. You can see his ID there on the banner, dogs247.com. All right. Now you need to go to work for us, because there's always a list of names when you're talking NFL draft and Georgia football, because who's coming back, and then, of course, a number of early entries into the NFL draft. So I will just give you the stage and let you go with it.
Yeah, and that's certainly the case this year with Georgia. I think it all starts with recruiting. You look back 3 years ago, Georgia, Kirby Smart brings in his first number 1 ranked class, and now you're seeing those guys as the 3-and-out type players. So starting that off would be Trey Hill and Azeez Ojulari. Those two are third-year players that are headed to the NFL. They're joined by Malik Herring, who is a senior defensive lineman, had the option to come back for what would have been a 5th season. But he's played in over 10 games in all 4 years for Georgia. I believe he's got 52 career games under his belt. And so, he's certainly got the experience that he can head to the NFL. Those 3 announced recently since the bowl game. And we discussed the ones before the bowl game that, offensively, Georgia was losing Ben Cleveland, Trey McKitty, and defensively that Monty Rice and Eric Stokes and DJ Daniel would be out and headed to the NFL. So, that's your list right now that's headed to the NFL. In terms of people that have decided that they are going to come back, big name is JT Daniels. I mentioned it earlier and talking about the way Georgia finished the season and the way that they look headed into this new year. That is the centerpiece. And I think there was a little bit of question regarding whether he would come back or not. I think most people thought he would come back, but you did see his name pop up on some NFL draft boards, mock drafts and such. I know CBS had him as a first rounder. a couple weeks back. And so, I think there was certainly some consideration there, some discussions that were needed to be had. But as JT Daniels said in his tweet, announcement that he's coming back, he's got unfinished business. He feels at home in Athens, feels really good about where he's at in terms of his decision to transfer to UGA. And he feels like he's surrounded by a good unit that they can put up some big numbers in 2021. Another piece of that big unit will be James Cook, third-year running back, will be back for his fourth year. Unfortunately, he missed the bowl game after the passing of his father. But, exciting to see him come back and return for his senior season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Devonta Wyatt is one of those seniors that is going to use that fifth year, the freebie year of eligibility that the NCAA is giving all student athletes because of COVID-19. He'll be back, and that's certainly a big piece in the middle of the defensive line for Georgia. I think looking ahead in terms of, where the big decisions remain, I would say the biggest of them all is probably Jordan Davis. And I don't mean that physically and literally, and physically and, literally and figuratively. I think Davis is, like Wyatt, he can be a centerpiece of that defensive line in this next year. And thoughts are that he will be coming back. I think he got banged up towards the end of the season, had an elbow injury that kept him out of several games. Down the stretch, he was able to return for Missouri as well as the bowl game, and he had a big bowl game. He put up had a sack there in the bowl, 3 tackles and a sack. So, getting him back for Georgia, anytime you can get one of those big guys in the middle to stop the run, Georgia's certainly been good at that. And having a guy like Davis to help would certainly be huge. On the back end of the secondary, Tyson Campbell is probably the biggest name to watch. He was a former 5-star cornerback coming out of high school. Believe he was the number 2 cornerback in that class behind Patrick Surtain. And those two played together in high school. So down at American Heritage, he's a name that's been on the radar of NFL teams for a while. He started as a freshman at Georgia, played quite a bit, and then ultimately ended up going to the bench. Eric Stokes takes over for him after Campbell had some struggles. Campbell struggled with some injuries last year, so he didn't get a full year last year, but he was the full-time starter this year. And looked good, but certainly could benefit from another season. And Georgia's secondary certainly would love to have him back, given the fact that they are losing Stokes and Daniel, and likely losing Richard LeCount on the back end. Mark Webb is another name to watch in the secondary. He played Georgia's all-important star position. That's a name to watch. He is a senior. He would be using that free year of eligibility, and so. That's an interesting one to watch. On offense, the names to watch there are, there's not nearly as many on offense. But Zamir White is certainly a big one, former number 1 ranked running back out of high school, took over the number 1 running back duties alongside James Cook this year. And so, having a second year of White and Cook in the backfield, and a second year of both those guys under offensive coordinator Todd Monken would certainly be big. In terms of wide receivers, Georgia's going to bring back most of their guys in terms of Pickens and Jermaine Burton. But 2 guys to watch are Kyrus Jackson, who ended up leading the team in receptions and yards this year, as well as Demetris Robertson, former number 1 ranked wide receiver. Those 2 are guys that could have the possibility to return. Robertson is a senior and would be using that freebie year of eligibility, whereas Kyrus Jackson is a redshirt sophomore. So he would be coming back, under normal circumstances of eligibility. And then on the offensive line, Jamari, Salyer, and Justin Schaefer. Salyer was a very highly rated recruit out of high school. Another guy that was a part of that 2018 number 1 signing class. And he manned the left tackle position for Georgia this year. Bumped inside to left guard for the bowl game, and that's more than likely where he'll play in the pros. So it'll be interesting to see if he does decide to come back, which early indications are that he will. If he comes back, does he man that left tackle spot again and kind of get some continuity there? After Georgia Andrew Thomas went to Salyer this year, those 2 were actually high school teammates at Pace Academy. in Atlanta. But or does he bump inside to his more natural position at guard? And Georgia moves, let's say a Broderick Jones or an Amarius Mims, a younger guy that is a 5-star tackle talent, out to the true position out at left tackle. So that would be interesting to watch, as well as Justin Schaefer. Schaefer manned the left guard position for the most of the year, bumped over to the right side of the line with Ben Cleveland missing the bowl game. He would be using that 5th year of eligibility, but that's certainly a possibility. So, it's quite a few names to take in, but Georgia's got, regardless of who decides to come back and decides to leave, Georgia's got quite a bit of talent that will be returning, to go along with the guys that announced that they are passing up the NFL and coming back for a junior or senior season.
So again, Cook definitely coming back. We're still waiting on White at running back, correct?
That is correct. Cook announced today that he will be returning. White has yet to make a decision.
Cook had 6.7 yards per carry, caught 16 passes out of the backfield, 5 touchdowns. And as Palmer mentions, Zamir White led the team with just a yard under 800 yards, 11 touchdowns rushing. And everybody mentioned pretty productive defensively. Tyson Campbell, 29 tackles and a pick. Webb had a pick as well with 21 tackles. And Devonta Wyatt also with 25 tackles and 2 tackles for loss for the Georgia Bulldogs. One player who had 2 catches this year for 27 yards, but will try to be more productive elsewhere would be Matt Landers at wide receiver.
Yes, Landers announced today that he's hitting the transfer portal, as well as Georgia kicker Brooks Buse. He was behind Jack Podlesny, who hit the game-winning field goal in the Peach Bowl. So that those 2 moves aren't all that surprising, given the fact that they are older players that have been passed up by some younger talent. Buse also behind Jared Zirkle, who was recruited to come in and kick, in this last signing class. So, the transfer portal is certainly a new element to it all, an ever-changing element, given the fact that, who knows what's going to happen in terms of free eligibility immediately. And so, Georgia, as they say, the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh. So, those are 2 names that are in the transfer portal from Georgia. We've talked about some other ones in terms of Jermaine Johnson, Dwan Mathis, Micaiah Tongue, Trey Blunt as well. But Georgia's certainly going to be looking at the transfer portal to bring in some talent in terms of maybe possibly Eric Gilbert, former 5-star tight end out of the state of Georgia. If they end up losing Campbell, that they'll be down their top 3 corners from this year. So it would not surprise me to see them go after a veteran cornerback. Not sure of what names are in there for that yet. But like I said, it giveth and it taketh. So Georgia fans are certainly keeping an eye on that transfer portal and looking to see who could be coming and who could be leaving Georgia.
Folks, we talk college football every day, 24/7, 365. The season is just about over, but we will be here talking college football every day. Got guys like Palmer Toms keeping us updated on the top programs in the nation. Join Palmer at dogs247.com. Palmer, we always appreciate a ton of insight and information from you. Appreciate you stopping by.
Yep. Thanks, Mark.